tied up and tortured was Thandiwe. Her eyes were barely open. "Help me," she whispered, her voice hoarse. The detective ran to her and untied her. She was shaking and injured, but still alive. As they escorted her out of the haunted house, her face bore the signs of a terrible ordeal she must have undergone. Thandiwe's story, once she had gathered the strength to speak, was chilling. She said, "I was in my music room playing my violin just by my piano." Her voice was trembling. "I remember feeling an eerie sensation, like someone was watching me. Before I could react, I was struck from behind. The pain was intense, but I didn't pass out immediately. I fell to the floor, and in a desperate attempt, I left a clue. I scratched LMA just by my piano on the wooden floor with my fingernails before everything went black." Thandiwe recounted how Liema tortured her both physically and mentally, inflicting severe injuries and leaving her to die in that haunted building. News of Thandiwe's miraculous survival spread like wildfire. The hashtag Justice for Thandiwe trended for days, and vigils were held in her honor across the country. The evidence Thandiwe provided was compelling. Combined with the testimonies and the physical evidence found at the scene, it was more than enough for the authorities to arrest Liema. The police moved quickly, apprehending Liema at her residence. She was charged with kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder. As Liema was led away in handcuffs, she maintained her innocence, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. However, the overwhelming evidence and Thandiwe's testimony painted a different picture. The courthouse was packed every day with journalists, supporters, and curious onlookers eager to see justice served. A month later, Amashe's plan for the day was to return the damaged violin from evidence back to Thandiwe before heading to see her family in Johannesburg. As she got to the mansion, she was let in by Thandiwe's housekeeper, who told her that Thandiwe was resting in her room upstairs. Making her way to the music room, Amashe carefully placed the violin back on the grand piano. Immediately, Thandiwe entered the room, her face looking tired. They exchanged pleasantries. Amashe told Thandiwe how happy she was to see her back on her feet. Just when Amashe was about to leave, Thandiwe said softly, "Thank you for bringing it back," pointing at the damaged violin on the piano. Amashe smiled and nodded her head. "Of course, I'm happy you have your violin back. Perhaps you get another one?" Thandiwe laughed. "I don't know, maybe, but it'll never feel the same. I've used this violin for years. We've been through so much together. It's just sad that it only took a bread knife to do this much damage to the violin." Amashe froze. She couldn't understand what her ears just heard. She walked towards Thandiwe and asked, "I'm sorry, how did you know it was a bread knife? You said yourself that Liema had knocked you out before you were kidnapped, and the violin was just fine before then. So how did you know it was damaged by a bread knife?" Thandiwe's eyes flickered with surprise, but quickly masked it. "You told me," she said smoothly. "The day you rescued me, you mentioned it." Amashe stepped closer. looking into Thandiwe's eyes before saying, "I never mentioned anything about a bread knife." Realization finally hit her. "Thandiwe Kumalos, it was you, wasn't it?" She smiled. No one in the public knew how the violin and the strings were damaged. This information is only privy to everyone in the police force. So imagine my surprise how you know this information. You orchestrated all of this, didn't you? The kidnapping, the framing of Liema. And how do you explain how convenient the clues that led us to Liema just miraculously landed on our laps? Thandiwe's expression turned cold. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, but you do." "It was you all along," Amache said, laughing, her arms on her waist. "It was all a ploy to eliminate your rival and catapult yourself back into the spotlight. You really wanted to win those awards, didn't you?" Thandiwe smiled. "You have no proof. You can't prove anything." Amache looked her dead in the eye. "Well, we'll see about that. I'll be back." Amache returned to the office with renewed determination to uncover the truth. She meticulously reviewed the surveillance tapes from around Thandiwe's house and the building where she was found, but found nothing suspicious. She refused to give up. She decided to expand her search. She broadened her investigation to include surveillance tapes from the end of Thandiwe Street and the streets surrounding the old house where Thandiwe had been rescued. After hours of painstakingly scrutinizing the footage, she finally found something that caught her eye. In one of the tapes, Thandiwe is seen driving out of her street in her car. The footage continued to show Thandiwe ditching her car on the highway, and to Amache's astonishment, she then saw Thandiwe taking out a bicycle from the trunk and riding it towards the building where she later claimed to have been held hostage. This revelation was shocking and changed the course of the investigation entirely. During her investigation, Amache also found out that the house where Thandiwe had claimed to be held captive was actually owned by her family. Bingo! That was all the proof Amache needed. It was the night of the awards ceremony, and just as she had wanted, Thandiwe won Artist of the Year and Album of the Year. To include to that, she won Trailblazer of the Year. Amache and Thabo arrived at the award ceremony with other police officers behind them. The atmosphere was electric, with flashing cameras and cheering fans. Amache spotted Thandiwe, her face radiant as she held her awards. Amache stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "Thandiwe Kumalos, you're under arrest for orchestrating your disappearance." Thandiwe's smile faltered. "What? You can't be serious. Do you have any proof?" Amache held up ownership documents to show her that the haunted house actually belonged to her family. Thandiwe's face paled, but she quickly composed herself. "So what? You still can't prove I did anything wrong." Amache held up her phone, playing the surveillance footage for everyone to see. This footage shows you driving out of your street, ditching your car and riding a bicycle to the building where you claim to have been held hostage. As Thandiwe was led away, she laughed maniacally, clutching her award. I still won! I still won the Artist of the Year with the Album of the Year. Nothing can change that. It's mine. Take her away, Amashe said, smiling, as the police officers cuffed Thandiwe. Before she was taken away, she turned around to Amashe and asked, how did you know it was me? Amashe smiled. The violin strings, they were cut and twisted with so much care and precision, not in a struggle. You cared for that violin too much to cut the strings shabbily. That was enough to keep me wondering. You orchestrated everything to frame Liema and take her out of the picture. Thandiwe Kumalos faced trial for her actions and was convicted of her crimes. Her elaborate scheme to secure fame and eliminate her rival backfired spectacularly, leaving her with a tarnished legacy and a future behind bars. Liema, on the other hand, was released and continued to rise in her career, her music resonating with fans old and new. In the end, Thandiwe's awards were rescinded and passed on to Liema. Amashe was promoted as she had always wanted. This case had been a stepping stone to a wonderful career she had ahead of her. The story of Thandiwe Kumalos became a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the inevitable downfall that comes with living a life built on deceit. Although she won the awards, she lost her freedom and respect, serving as a reminder that true success is achieved through integrity and not manipulation. The end.